Hey guys, welcome back on the channel. Fabrizio Romano here as always to keep you posted on the transfer market. And today guys, a busy market as always, big updates for you, many stories, and so we are ready to jump into it.
Hello everyone. Manchester City transfer, Bombshell, Aayub Buadi close, Rodri future in doubt, and Enzo Fernandez linked. Manchester City fans, welcome back to the channel. There is a lot happening around Manchester City right now, and the latest transfer developments could have a major impact on the club's midfield going into the new season. One story is dominating the headlines. Manchester City are reportedly closing in on a major deal for Lille midfielder Aayub Buadi. At the same time, Rodri's future at the Etihad Stadium is becoming increasingly uncertain as Barcelona continue to push for the Spanish midfielder. And then there is another huge name being mentioned in connection with City's midfield plans, Chelsea's Enzo Fernandez. So what exactly is happening? Is Rodri really on his way out? Is Bouaddi being signed specifically to replace him? Could Manchester City actually make a move for Enzo Fernandez? And most importantly, what would all of this mean for Enzo Maresca's Manchester City? Let's break down the entire situation carefully. Part 1. Aayub Buadi, the transfer that could change City's midfield. The biggest Manchester City transfer story right now is Aayub Buadi. According to the latest reports, Manchester City are nearing an agreement with Lille for the young midfielder, with the transfer being valued at around £85 million. Bouaddi has reportedly already agreed personal terms with Manchester City, although the two clubs still have work to do before the transfer can officially be completed. That distinction is extremely important. Manchester City have not officially announced Bouaddi as their player. There is no completed transfer announcement yet, but the situation has clearly moved beyond simple speculation. The reports indicate that City are working seriously on the deal, and the midfielder is now very close to becoming part of the club's plans. For a player who is only 18 years old, an £85 million valuation would represent an enormous investment. It would also tell us something about Manchester City's strategy. City are not simply looking for an emergency replacement. They appear to be looking for a midfielder who can become an important part of the team's future. Bouaddi has attracted attention because of his technical ability, intelligence, maturity, and versatility in midfield. He is still extremely young, but his profile fits the modern Manchester City approach. A midfielder who can operate in possession, understand positional football, and contribute both with and without the ball. And that could become extremely important if Rodri leaves. Part 2. Why Bouaddi and Rodri are connected. This is where the Manchester City story becomes much more interesting. Bouaddi's potential arrival is happening at exactly the same time as uncertainty surrounding Rodri's future. That has naturally created the impression that Manchester City are preparing for life after their Spanish midfielder. But there is an important detail. Reports indicate that Manchester City want Bouaddi, regardless of what eventually happens with Rodri. That means City may not necessarily be thinking, Rodri leaves, then we buy Bouaddi. Instead, they could be thinking, we need Bouaddi for the future. And if Rodri leaves, his importance becomes even greater. That is a very different strategy. Manchester City have been rebuilding their midfield, and Bouaddi could become another major part of that process. The club have already invested heavily in Elliot Anderson, who arrived from Nottingham Forest for a reported £116 million. Now, Bouaddi could potentially arrive for around £85 million. That would represent another enormous investment in midfield. It shows that City are preparing for a new era. For years, Manchester City's midfield has been built around players such as Rodri, Kevin De Bruyne and Bernardo Silva. But football moves quickly. Some of those players have already left or moved into different stages of their careers. That means Manchester City have to think about the next generation. Bouaddi could be part of that next generation. Part 3, Rodri and Barcelona. Now let's talk about the biggest question of all. Rodri. The Spanish midfielder has become one of the most important players in Manchester City's modern history. Since arriving at the Etihad, he has become the foundation of City's midfield. His ability to control the tempo, protect the defence, recover possession and dictate games has made him incredibly important to the team's style. That is why Barcelona's interest is such a major story. Barcelona have already made an opening proposal for Rodri. That offer was reported at around £38.5 million. Equivalent to approximately €45 million, Manchester City rejected it. The reason is simple. City do not consider that amount sufficient for a player of Rodri's importance. Reports indicate that Manchester City want at least £60 million before they would consider allowing him to leave. So Barcelona now have a problem. They want Rodri. Rodri is reportedly attracted by the possibility of returning to Spain, but Manchester City are not simply going to hand him over cheaply. This means the negotiations could become complicated. Barcelona need to find a way to finance the transfer. One possibility being discussed is selling players in order to raise funds. Ferran Torres has also been mentioned in transfer discussions around Barcelona, and there have even been reports suggesting Barcelona could explore including another player in a possible deal. However, none of this means a final agreement has been reached. That is another point Manchester City fans need to understand. Rodri is still a Manchester City player. There is no official announcement that he has joined Barcelona. The situation is developing. Part 4. What if Rodri really leaves? This is where the consequences become enormous. Losing Rodri would not simply mean losing another midfielder. It would mean losing the player who has provided balance to Manchester City's entire system. When Rodri plays, City can control games differently. He gives the defenders protection. He allows attacking midfielders to move forward. He can slow the game down when necessary. He can accelerate the tempo when City need to attack. He also has the ability to score important goals. Replacing that combination is incredibly difficult. There are many talented midfielders in world football, but finding another player who can perform exactly the same role as Rodri is almost impossible. That is why Manchester City's transfer strategy is so interesting. They may not be trying to find another Rodri. Instead, they could be trying to create a different midfield. Bouaddi could offer something different. Elliot Anderson offers another profile, and then there is the possibility of Enzo Fernandez. That would create a completely different midfield identity. Part 5, Enzo Fernandez enters the story. Another major name being linked with Manchester City is Chelsea midfielder Enzo Fernandez. Reports say City are exploring the possibility of signing the Argentine midfielder as they prepare for the possibility of Rodri leaving. Some reports have gone even further, suggesting that Enzo Fernandez is one of the preferred options for the new City coach Enzo Maresca. That story is particularly interesting because Maresca knows Enzo Fernandez very well from his time at Chelsea. The manager understands the midfielder's strengths. He knows how Fernandez operates, and he knows what the player can potentially bring to a possession-based team. However, Manchester City would face a major challenge if they wanted to sign him. Chelsea are not a club that needs to sell Enzo Fernandez. They invested heavily in the midfielder, and he remains a very important part of their project. That means City would probably have to pay an enormous amount. Some reports have suggested a valuation around £120 million, but that figure should be treated as a reported valuation rather than a confirmed asking price. There is no official agreement between Chelsea and Manchester City. There is also no official confirmation that City have made a formal bid. So at this stage, Enzo Fernandez remains a major transfer possibility rather than a completed move. Part 6. Why Maresca could like Enzo Fernandez. If the Rodri situation develops further, the Enzo Fernandez story could become one of the most interesting transfer battles of the summer. Maresca's football is based heavily on possession, movement, technical quality and control. Enzo Fernandez fits many of those characteristics. He is comfortable receiving the ball under pressure. He can play forward passes. He can switch the play. He can help control the tempo. And he can contribute from deeper positions. But there is also a question. Would Manchester City really spend more than £100 million on another midfielder after already investing heavily in Elliot Anderson and potentially Bouaddi? That is where the strategy becomes complicated. City have money, but even Manchester City have to consider squad balance. If they sign Bouaddi and Anderson and Rodri stays, then adding Enzo Fernandez would create an extremely expensive midfield. If Rodri leaves, however, the situation changes. The club would have lost one of the best midfielders in the world. Suddenly, replacing him with another elite midfielder becomes much easier to justify. That is why Rodri's decision could determine what happens next. Part 7. City's new midfield project. Manchester City appear to be entering a new phase. The old midfield structure was incredibly successful. Rodri was the defensive foundation. Bernardo Silva provided intelligence and creativity. Kevin De Bruyne offered elite passing, and